Hello there once again and welcome to In Your Corner. John Scholes, Sivan Tumarkin, James Fireman. The pros are here on board and ready to go. We're going to talk about disability law and all the stuff under that umbrella. If you've not contacted ever, 1-855-821-5900. Quite simply, help at inyourcorner.ca. A lot of stuff to cover today. In fact, something from a Google review you guys got I want to get to in just a few minutes. But first, James, as always, share the knowledge, my brother. What do you got going on?
Well, one of the things I want to talk about is the balance of power in a long-term disability dispute when your benefits are cut off or denied. And most people who are in that situation feel like they don't have a lot of power, like the insurance company is in control. And I want to let people in on a secret. Insurance companies are terrified of the legal process, and they're terrified for two reasons. Number one, they lose control. They are no longer able to determine what the final outcome is going to be. And number two, they are absolutely terrified of it going to trial and having a decision that's publicly reported about what has gone on. It isn't, for them, it's not about the money they might have to pay. It's not about having to pay the benefits up to date and so forth. They are billion-dollar companies and they can afford to pay your benefits. For them, the big issue is public relations. And if there is a decision out there from a judge of the Superior Court of Ontario or BC that says that this insurance company has acted badly and that they ought to have done something different, they ought to have had a better process, a more fair process, right, that is very bad for business for them. And that is something they do not want. So as long as you don't bring a legal claim, they still retain all of the power. But the moment you bring a legal claim, that all changes. They become very reasonable very quickly, especially if you have an experienced disability lawyer on your side.
Sivan, a week that was, what's happening in your world on your desk?
You know, John, I had a gentleman, 48-year-old man, call me up. He's in the banking industry, and he suffers from severe sciatica and severe anxiety. And he sees a neurologist, and the neurologist schedules an MRI, and there's discussion about a potential back surgery. And of course, he's getting depressed, and there's more anxiety. You know, what does that mean in terms of, you know, the ability to bring home money, right, to continue working, not to go on disability. But in any event, he ends up applying for long-term disability, and he ends up getting rejected for that. And this just happened last month. And the reason he was rejected is because the insurance company said there's just insufficient medical documentation. And why is there insufficient medical documentation? Because the MRI hasn't happened yet. Despite the fact that the neurologist, the family doctor, and the psychologist, by the way, who's treating him for the psychological issues he's experiencing, they're all saying he's unable to work. And so of course he's asking me, is the insurance company correct? And I said, absolutely not. What the insurance company could have done is they could have waited for the results of the MRI. They could have told you that they're going to wait until they get that and then make a determination. Or they could have said that based on all of the medical documentation you've given us now, you certainly qualify because you're disabled from working. You cannot work. You have to be off work. But instead, what do? They just issue a straightforward denial. And of course, the denial letter contains that provision at the end that says you can appeal this. And he's asking me, should I do that? What can I do? And you know, I usually tell people you have three options when you're faced with a situation like this. Number one, do nothing. It's the worst thing you can do. Simply walk away. But that means the insurance company is walking away with money that is owed to you. And we're not talking about a few dollars. We're talking about potentially tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe even more, that's owed to you. Number two, you could appeal. And of course, if you appeal, you are playing now by their rules. And chances are you're going to get denied. And you know, I hesitate a bit because, you know, can I tell you that in every instance you get denied? No, but I can tell you in the vast majority of cases that we see come across our desk, that we talk to people, these appeals are useless. And they're useless because you're asking the exact same people who denied you in the first place to reconsider their position. Why would they? Right. And the third thing you can do, which is where you apply the most amount of pressure, and that goes to James's initial point, that's where you are actually exercising real power, is by taking control away from the insurance company, starting a legal process, which is exactly what we do day in and day out. And yes, insurance companies are terrified of this. And we have had cases, and we're going to talk about one in a second, where we have applied that legal process. We've started the legal process, and the case got media attention, and holy cow, did the insurance company flip out. Why? Because for them, it is a public relations nightmare. And if you Google our names, you will see that we've been involved in certain cases across the country where insurance companies, I am telling you, we got angry phone calls from adjusters, from lawyers. Why? Not because of the case, but because they are now losing money. People are not signing up with them. They are now going to other insurance companies, right? People are staying away from them. They don't like that. That's a lot of money they're losing. So, you know, we focus on the legalities of the case, on the justness of the case. People have that power, and that's what I told that gentleman. That's what I want to tell people. You are not alone. We can help you advance your case, but we got to do it the right way. If you try to do it yourself, if you try to go through the appeals process, you're probably going to go down a road you're going to be very sorry for, and you're going to end up coming to us anyways at the end, so why lose that time?
1-855-821-5900, the way to reach out, help at inyourcorner.ca. You mentioned going to the media. That's why I want to bring this up. This is a fantastic story. I mean, you give praise where praise is due, and good people often get what's coming to them. Both I'm talking about you and James and our friend Julie here. Now, you did mention the media. This story has been covered on Global several times by Sean O'Shea. I think 3 times we've heard of this story. And you guys intervened, right? Her name is Julie, school teacher, and I'm going to read the Google review Julie left about the firm and James and you guys. So I know you've read this, but I know you don't mind hearing it again. Julie writes in, Google review again, says, I will be forever grateful that this firm saw my story on Global News and sought me out to offer their services. Sivan came to Barrie to meet me as I have great difficulty driving as a result of my injuries. This is Julie again. She says, he, along with the others at the firm, were outraged over how I was being treated by my employer. His wealth of knowledge, strong morals, and kind nature gave me a much-needed sense of hope. James Fireman took on my case and was incredible to work with. He was passionate about the case, worked diligently, and made all the right moves. He is outstanding in his field and got my insurance company to overturn their decision. That's huge, to deny my LTD claim. Thank you for all your efforts, giving my son and I hope for the future and means to pay for uncovered treatments necessary for my recovery. Wow, Julie and Barrie, that's pretty incredible.
You know what, John, let me say a few words about here, because when I saw the story first on the news, and we had intervened, and I went and met with Julie and her mom, and I saw the pain that she was in, and I saw how she was treated. And remember, you know, there are a lot of details here. We can fill the whole show with the details of this case. Keep in mind, the legal claim is ongoing.
But she got reinstated.
She got reinstated, so the insurance company backed off.
Yes.
But knowing James, he's not letting go, okay? He's going for a lot more than what the insurance company is paying and ought to have paid, and rightly so, because this is an egregious case. And that's one of the things that we do is, if the insurance company acted in an especially bad way, in a horrible way, we're not just going to go for what's owed to our client, but above and beyond that. Now, this is a case where I met with them. You know what she showed me? She showed me a report that said that the insurance company conducted surveillance that allegedly said that it contradicted what she was claiming as you know, for her disability. And in fact, when we looked at the surveillance, it proved that she was disabled. Yep. And when we put their foot to the feet of the fire, when James actually presented them with the arguments and the explanations and everything else, they admitted it essentially. Oops. You know, so, and you know, when the surveillance came out, her union said to her, sorry, we can't help you. And we see this a lot again with unionized employees, where the union oftentimes just washes their hands away, and they don't actually help the individual, and then we can step in to help. Or the union tries to help, but they don't have an expertise in long-term disability. And again, this is an instant where you should be approaching us, and we can tell you fairly quickly if you have a case or not. So this was an excellent case. James handled it just in a spectacular way, and it's, again, one of those cases that it's still ongoing. You're right. If people were to Google Julie Austin, teacher, disability, you'll see those stories. You'll see the videos that Sean O'Shea did. And I suspect that's not going to be the last installment from Sean O'Shea. I suspect that there's going to be more coming on this story.
Or from James Fireman. James the Bulldog Fireman.
Well, I suspect that you're right. I do want to pick up on something you were talking about, though, Sivan, that Julie, she's a wonderful lady, and she's a teacher, which, of course, as Sivan mentioned, means she's in a union. And her union tried to help her but wasn't able to. And I certainly am not going to disparage her union. They made an attempt to try and help her, but that's not what they're there for. That is not where their expertise lies. And so try as they might, they weren't able to help her. And it wasn't until that she came to our firm that things started to turn around. And it's to the point where the insurance company has acknowledged, we were wrong. We ought to have been paying you all along. That's why they reinstated her benefits. What other reason would there have been? They've reinstated her, even though nobody was willing to help her initially, including her. Well, I shouldn't say her union wasn't willing to help her, but weren't able to. So if you're in that position and you've been denied your benefits and your union has said, we've tried, but there's nothing else we can do, but you still know that you're disabled, don't give up. Give us a call. That's what we're here for. You don't go speak to somebody who isn't really in a position to have the experience and knowledge to help you out. You make sure you talk to someone who knows what they're doing, who deals with it on a day-to-day basis. And you need to speak to an experienced disability lawyer before you even think about walking away.
And it's worth mentioning as well that when it comes to her job and the employment, the union is where it ends. But as far as disability is concerned, they can go outside the union and get involved with you guys. Well, here's the proof, right?
Yes, it's exactly true. And in fact, we've had a lot of teachers contact us from across the province since then, and we've been able to help them. Yep. And according to her union, which I have no way of verifying the statistic, but frankly, from what I hear in the news, it makes sense. They're saying that 70% of Ontario elementary educators have either seen or experienced violence in schools. Just imagine how many people out there are in the position that Julie is in, or in a similar position, and they're fighting an insurance company who says, we're not going to pay you, when there is a legitimate claim to be paid. And again, this particular case has been in the media, right? Not because of us, because Global has taken the initiative, but how many people out there are not in the media? How many people out there need this help? And this is something that we want people to understand. You have that power. You have to reach out to us so that we can get involved, but you have that power to challenge the insurance company, especially when they are, making a decision which is patently wrong. And your doctors have said you are absolutely disabled and yet they're refusing to pay. We can't stand for that.
Reaching out is so simple. 1-855-821-5900 would be the number. Help at inyourcorner.ca. I'm going to get to an email, guys. This is Ellen this time. I'm doing a lot of reading this show, I noticed. That's okay. Ellen writes into you guys, says, my wife was declined LTD, even though it has been recommended by her doctor. She has worked for a major corporation for, get this, 37 years, and her problems started off as work-related, but have become more serious. Her psychologist says she can't work anywhere. Her insurer says that's an employment issue, not an LTD issue. Are they right?
They're not right. Okay. They're not right. If her psychiatrist is saying that her issue is generalized and is there across any situation, then they are not correct. So let me back up a little bit here. Long-term disability is payable in the first 2 years if you are disabled from doing your own occupation. Not your own job, your own occupation. And the distinction I'm making there is the test would be applied in a way where if you were able to do the same job that you have for your employer with a different employer, but your work situation is such that you can't go back there because of stress, anxiety, depression, what have you, it triggers your mental health issue, then you wouldn't have a claim if it's really only specific to your job. But if you could go somewhere else, then you wouldn't have a claim. Now, this does not seem to be what we're talking about here. In this particular case, it's a generalized condition. Okay. It doesn't surprise me that the insurer is taking that position because insurers don't want to pay out benefits. And if they have any basis for denying anyone's claim, they're going to do it. They're going to grab hold of it. And so if they can rightly say that this is something that was initially caused by work, then they're going to grab hold of that and they're going to say, and that's all that it is. And so you're going to have to fight them on this. Gotcha. That is almost always going to be the case. When you have something that is triggered initially by work and becomes generalized, they're almost always going to deny. That doesn't mean that they're right. You start a legal claim, and as long as your doctors are supporting you and saying that you now have a condition that would be there whether you were at your place of employment or at home or somewhere else, then you have a valid claim.
Guys, we'll take a break. 1-855-821-5900. Help at inyourcorner.ca. Coming up, 3 things you may not know about your long-term disability claim and how to navigate that lovely appeals process. That is all on the way on In Your Corner. Stick around. You were being harassed, and when you said something about it, you're the one who lost your job. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Insurance companies deny long-term disability claims all the time. They give lots of excuses. Don't give up. I've seen it all. They've ignored your doctors, they've ignored you. You're angry and you're frustrated. But there's hope. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to inyourcorner.ca. You thought you had a secure job. You didn't see it coming. Now what do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca. And welcome back to In Your Corner. Help at inyourcorner.ca is the email address, or 1-855-821-5900. Get a hold of these two charming gentlemen anytime, or somebody else in the firm. Okay, guys, 3 facts you may not know about your long-term disability claim. I will read these and you will comment. That's how it works. Number 1, when you apply for LTD, your insurance company allocates a reserve amount for the entirety of your claim.
So that's a very interesting concept that most people don't have any clue about.
Okay.
And this applies equally in long-term disability claims, but also in personal injury claims. The point is this: as soon as an insurance company is faced with a legal claim, or any claim really, in this case, even if you apply for long-term disability, the insurance company has a process. It's an internal process where they take a certain amount of money that they calculate based on their own formulas, their own computer-generated systems, whatever, and they put that aside, assuming that they're going to have to pay your claim in its entirety at some point. And so if you think about this, let's say, John, you apply for long-term disability, or you fight them for long-term disability, and if they were to pay you until age 65, they would have to pay you $500,000.
Okay.
They may put that money aside. So when we are starting a claim against them, they would love nothing more than to pay zero of that amount.
So they're not offering that up right away.
They're not offering anywhere
there,
near. In
but-
fact, when they're denying your claim, they are offering you zero. That's usually the
baseline.
situation where most of our clients come to us with a big zero.
Gotcha.
And so our goal then is to understand exactly what the pressure points are and to make sure we get as much of that reserve amount to give that to our clients. Now, again, we can do a whole show about how they calculate the reserve amount and what influences the reserve amount. I will tell you a few small details. Who you have representing you may affect, in fact, probably does affect, I can tell you from
it's probably one of the biggest factors.
You're
Really?
right.
Yeah.
You're right. And in fact, James is actually right. I'm going to be more emphatic about this. You're right. In fact, we know that we're right about this point because we both used to work for insurance companies. And so we used to discuss reserves with our adjusters that we were taking instructions from. And we would, in fact, advise our adjusters on who is on the other side. We would tell them, this lawyer is good, this lawyer is bad, this firm is serious. 100%.
Really?
They will look at the claim and they will look at the track record of the firm, of the lawyer, of who's handling the case. And based on who's representing you, they're going to figure out if they're going to have to pay this much or this much, right?
The difference isn't theoretical.
No.
You know, if you do defense work for long enough, you're going to see similar cases over and over again,
Right.
and the amount that you have to pay out is going to vary widely. And the biggest factor that affects how much you're going to pay out is how good and how experienced the lawyer on the other side is. Are they going to know which buttons to push and when to do it? And if they don't, you're going to wind up paying 10 cents on the dollar, and the lawyer and their client aren't going to know the difference, and they're going to be quite happy about it, walking away from the vast majority of what they are entitled to. Yeah.
You know, John, I mean, the best way to exemplify this, to give this as an example is, you know, if you're playing poker, if you have somebody representing you at the game, do you want a world champion representing you, or do you want somebody who doesn't have that much experience?
Right.
Because insurance companies are very sophisticated. The adjusters, that's what they do for a living. You want to put the best person out there to represent you with the best team, and that will affect the reserve significantly. But, you know, make no mistake, when the insurance company tells you that they're paying you nothing, that doesn't mean that there's no reserve. The money is allocated. Now, if you walk away, all that money doesn't disappear. It goes into their pockets as opposed to yours where it belongs.
3 things you may not know about your LTD claim. Number 2, while insurers won't admit they have quotas, they basically do.
Yeah, so one thing we know for certain, insurance companies are in the business of making money. They are there to make a profit. They make a profit by taking in premiums and paying out as little as they can. That is their objective. And that objective gets filtered down to every level. And it's a big bureaucracy. You know, it's a triangle. You know, one guy at the top and it filters down. And at the bottom level, you have these adjusters that are handling the claims on a day-to-day basis. But you better believe that they are being judged by the level right above them. And there is criteria that they are being judged by. Now, are these formal quotas that says you have to cut off X number of claims? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But they certainly are being judged by how many claims they are cutting off or denying. That is certainly going to be a big factor in their job performance, and we know that. And you know, this really bleeds into some other areas that we talk about. And the first one that comes to mind is appeals. Every show we are talking about appeals. Don't appeal. Well, why not? You know that these insurance companies, and at the lowest level, the adjusters, are being judged by how many claims they're able to deny, how many claims they're able to cut off. So if they've cut you off or denied your claim, and then you go back and appeal, and they've already been given credit for that with their bosses, how quick do you think they're going to be to want to reverse that decision? It's not going to make them look good. So unless they really have to, and even then they often won't, but unless they really have to, they're not going to change their mind on the appeal. It isn't that they don't understand, it's that they're being judged, and when they're being judged, they have to try cutting you off if they can, and they're not interested in your appeal. They don't want to put you back on claim.
I agree with everything you're saying.
Right?
No, you know what? It reminds me of the John Grisham books. You know, when they talk about big bad insurance companies. You know, I mean, it's funny. When I started practicing in this area of law, I thought, you know, John Grisham, that's just Hollywood. That's, you know, this is all myths and fiction. Honestly, I don't think he writes enough about this stuff. I actually don't think that it's anywhere near what the reality is, which is absolutely crazy, like you saw from that case of Julie Austin that we talked about before. Some of the cases we look at, I don't know that a day goes by when I'm in the office, when James doesn't come to my office, and you know he's so enthusiastic about, you know, look at how this adjuster screwed up.
This.
We're going to go after them for this and for that. I mean, for you, it's a game.
I get into a lather pretty quickly.
Right.
When you go through these files and you see how the decisions are actually being made, what is actually behind the yellow curtain, it is shocking. And you know, I've been doing this a really long time, and you would think that I wouldn't be surprised anymore. You would think it would stop being, you know, a shock to me, but it's not. Every time I pick up a file, I cannot believe what they've done now. It happens almost every single time.
3 facts you may not know about your LTD. Number 3 right now, AI, or artificial intelligence, dun dun dun, has arrived.
So that's really interesting. It's an interesting point. If you think about it, it's not that surprising that they're going to start using these kinds of systems, more advanced systems. And what are they used for? Well, you know, they already have certain guides that they go by to figure out, you know, if you have fibromyalgia or if you have a sprained neck or whatever it is in any context to do with insurance, you need 3 to 6 months to get better. So they'll tell you, you know, the fact that you're experiencing this pain or this issue for the last 12 months does not accord with the guide. And so therefore we're going to cut you off because you should have been better by now. And clearly something's wrong with you or with your doctors, or we don't believe you.
Right.
I think that the same kind of thing can be said with those new systems they're going to be using. They're going to have these programs that they're going to feed this information, medical information. They're going to feed in details from claimants, maybe statistical information. And at some point, they're going to, I think, use those systems to generate these statistics that they can rely on as a crutch to say, an algorithm, you ought to have been better by now. And the fact that you're not is not our problem. Well, guess what? It is their problem. And you know, the danger here is that those systems could get abused. It's not that we don't have a space for them and a place for them. It's that I don't trust insurance companies with them. It's that simple. And so we have to be very careful. And if you're in that situation where you're getting a letter or a call or an email from your adjuster saying, we've consulted one of these systems or guides or, frankly, a medical practitioner or a consultant, and they're saying that you ought to have been better by now, or your type of ailment, it does not make sense that it has gone on for as long as it has, we're cutting you off. Again, don't take that at face value. Every person is different. Yes, statistics do have a role to play. After all, I mean, we derive them from data, but you have outliers and you have people who fall throughout the range of the statistics, and every person is individual. And at the end of the day, we come back to something that James and I talk about all the time. Let's see what the doctors are saying. The people who are treating you and care for you, are they saying you're disabled? Can they explain your disability? Do they have a prognosis? Do they know for how long you're going to be disabled or that you're going to be disabled for the foreseeable future? If they're saying you cannot work, I don't care what those guys say. I don't care what this AI is going to say. But beware, it's coming, and you have to be ready to challenge that, or to at least have someone challenge on your behalf.
Get to another email again, help@inyourcorner.ca. This is Vicky. Vicky says, my husband was denied a year into his LTD claim after he saw the insurance company's doctor. His payments will end soon unless we provide more proof of his disability. My husband's doctors already said very clearly that he can't work because of mental illness issues, but the insurance adjuster told him on the phone that he's not buying it. That's nice.
So there's a few issues that Vicky's husband's claim brings to mind here. The first one, the one that jumps right off, is that they have told Vicky's husband that his benefits are going to be cut off in June. Not right away, but in June. So there's a few months until that happens. Well, a lot of people will get that information. They'll get a letter from their insurer saying your benefits are going to be cut off at some point in the future. And they'll think, well, okay, I got a little while to figure out what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll do that appeal that they're inviting me to do. And we know how we feel about that. Yeah. Don't do the appeal. But even so, they're going to wait because they figure, well, it's not till June that I get cut off. I'll deal with it then. No, that's the wrong approach for a few reasons. Number one, the longer you take to start a legal claim to challenge the denial, the longer it's going to take till you get to resolution. You're just wasting time. That's all you're doing. Number two, talking about time, the clock starts running on your limitation to bring a claim from the day you get the letter from the insurance company saying that they are cutting off or denying your benefits. You have 2 years. That's it. It doesn't matter if you appeal. It doesn't matter if that date is a couple months in the future. When they tell you that your benefits are cut off or denied, the clock starts running, and it keeps running. And if it hits 2 years, sorry, you are out of luck. Now, the other issue that this email brings up is about doctors hired by insurance companies to do assessments. Now, it's my experience that actually more often than not, insurance companies aren't even taking that step. They're usually either having a doctor do a paper review or even having a medical consultant who's not a doctor do a review. So at least in this case, they've sent her husband to a doctor, but that doesn't mean what the doctor says is what will carry the day if this were ever to go to court. Not at all. A doctor being hired, even let's assume it's an appropriate doctor, someone with the right expertise, that doctor will have seen Vicky's husband on one occasion, maybe for half an hour. How can their opinion possibly be preferred to a treating doctor who has been seeing her husband over many years and is completely familiar with his entire history and understands what's going on? And this isn't even bringing up the fact that the doctor the insurance company has hired is someone who is obviously getting a fair amount of business from that insurance company and has an inherent bias. Even if they're trying to avoid that, they know at the end of the day they're getting a big chunk of business from this one insurance company, and it's going to be very difficult for them to completely remove bias from the equation.
How to navigate that appeals process, we'll do it quickly after a short break. That is coming up on In Your Corner. Stick around.
You've been denied long-term disability. You think you're powerless, but you have a lot more power than you think. I'll tell you a secret. It's a numbers game for the insurance company. They're betting on you walking away from money that they owe you. Don't make that mistake. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to inyourcorner.ca. Hey, welcome back to In Your Corner. James, quickly, do you get retroactive payments once you've been denied an LTD claim? Possible?
Sure, as long as your doctor is supporting that you can't continue working. When we bring a claim, we're looking to get retroactive payments. Right. We're looking to get benefits into the future. And in many cases, we're looking to get benefits beyond what's in the policy for punitive damages.
You want to reach out. It's been a lot in this show. You want to catch up, is no problem. The number is 1-855-821-5900. And, of course, the email address, which we've used several times today, help@inyourcorner.ca. Or the website, simply inyourcorner.ca. Thanks for joining us. We will catch you next week right here on In Your Corner.